Okay, Tim and Dom, how you going?
G'day, Pato.
Hello, sir. Good. How are you?
Yeah, great. I'm fired up for the weekend. The Sat Champs kicks off in Australia, depending on time zone, on Saturday night. Um, Me and Tim are both going to be in Perth. What about you, Dom? Are you going to be at the UK
Um,
being held?
I'm not going to be there initially. Got a bit of a busy weekend, but may well swing by if they're still going sort of Monday night things like that. Might potentially be able to swing by on Sunday to have a look at how things are going there.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. Um, well, I mean, we'll run through each country, and but shall we go through? Tim, let's go through some stats about the championships and go from there. Hey,
Cool. One thing is the satellite champs. I always call it the Sat Champs, but I think officially it's called the World Team Championships, Backyard Ultra World Team Championships.
mm.
But I think satellite champs. I don't know if it's an Aussie way of referring to it. It's always what I've called it.
Yeah,
That's
Um,
all I've heard it as well, but probably just through your podcast, to be honest, Poe.
yeah, yeah. I had Aaron Young on. I mean, he kept referring to it as the Sat Champs. So I thought, oh well, that sounds good. I'll just call it the Sat Champs from now on as well.
so 64 countries, but it looks like Romania have pulled out or aren't participating anymore. So they're no longer on the list. So it looks like we're starting with 63 countries this year, which will be the most countries there's been in a Sat Champs or a World Team Champs. 27, although it'll be 26 without Romania countries participating for the first time. And I think a surprise there when I was going through the numbers, it's actually Poland's first time at the World Team Champs.
Mm.
So really strong team from Poland, and we'll get to that a bit later. With Romania out, it's 945 runners, although I would note some teams have runner names TBC. So I don't know if they're pulling in some last-minute runners or maybe they're running with less than 15. So likely to be around that 920 to 945 runners. It was only 555 last World Team Champs, so a huge field compared to then. And for runners, first time at a Team Champs, 737 of those 960, it's their first World Team Champs, which is huge. And it's Hungary and Denmark who have the least first-timers. They only have 4 first-timers, so really experienced fields out of Hungary and Denmark. Runners who ran in 2022, there's 214. And even more interesting, runners who ran both 2022 and 2020, there's only 24 runners. So I know we've got one here in Australia, but Mexico actually have the most. They got 4 runners participating in the World Team Champs for the third time, which is huge.
Mm.
And there's a few runners. I thought this was cool. There's 9 who ran in 2020, didn't run in 2022, but now they're back. So they've stuck with it. They've put in some big numbers anyway, and they've qualified for the 2024 World Team Champs. And Canada and Belgium both have 2 runners in that situation where they've missed out in 22, but they're back in 2024. The most runners with PBs over 100, and that's because over the last couple of years, 100 was only achieved in 2022 World Champs. So we've got 5 runners with PBs over 100. Average yards. So there are some runners who have been selected as team selections, maybe haven't even run a backyard before for some of the newer countries, but excluding them, the average is 32.5. So, Pato, you're above average. Yeah. Shame you live in Australia, Pato.
Yeah.
And for the countries who participated in 2022, the average is slightly higher, so 35.1, which you'd expect, obviously, being a bit more mature in the backyard world. Least yards to qualify. What do you reckon the least yards to qualify would be?
8.
Yeah.
Could it even be zero based on you saying that some are doing team selections? Could there be somebody debuting for a country? That'd be an interesting one.
Well, I think there's a fair few debuting, but of runners who have run a backyard ultra before, it looks in the data that the lowest is 2. So it was probably a test run, a bit of a trial run, but in Paraguay, there's Adrian and Caesar who qualified officially with 2 yards. And they only did that recently in August. So I think that might have been a strategic test run with some runners who maybe haven't done a backyard before, a bit of a simulation. But officially they qualified with 2 yards. Most yards but didn't qualify. This is the heartbreak category. It's changed. So we'll get to that a little later when we talk about the US. But it's still a US runner. Jason Begonia did 54 yards. However, he hasn't qualified on their at-large list because their at-large list is minimum 55. He would have qualified for every single other country, but USA has the highest at-large list. So bit of heartbreak there in case Jason wanted to be on the team. He just missed out. Highest yards to win a silver ticket race. This is a good one. Lukasz Robel from Poland. So we all saw Lukasz do 88 yards in Suffolk, but he officially qualified with 70 yards in a silver ticket race there, which is just massive. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what he can do. I think he's going to be a big name in this.
Yeah.
Not necessarily at this one potentially, but in the next 12 months or so, he's going to be a bit of a star, I think, in backyard running.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I think it'll be huge to watch in this event, but I think it'll be huge to watch in many events for the next few years.
Yeah, I think he's back at Suffolk again next year as well. So, and with potentially with Biggs, obviously in October again next year.
Yeah, that was one of the most amazing wins I've ever seen, that one at Suffolk. And you were lucky enough to see it in person, Dom.
Yes, yeah, that's like seeing him during how consistent he was, and then also going back at the end once he'd already finished, seeing him packing up the car himself and just being completely normal, like he hadn't just run for 88 hours. You know, he said he was getting his sleep every loop, basically getting at least 10 minutes of shut eye. And he definitely looked like he could have gone on way beyond 88 if someone's there to push him.
Yeah, I look at numbers. It might surprise you to know I had a spreadsheet going on the Suffolk lap times, and looking at Lukasz, he's running too fast. Like, it didn't look sustainable. But he just kept coming in every single yard looking fresh and starting the next one looking fresh, and he just seemed to break the laws of physics and seem unstoppable.
Yeah, it was really robotic the way he was going about it. It was pretty crazy to see. I know we'll probably touch on it a bit when we go through the countries, but it's kind of a shame that Bartosz isn't there on the Polish team this year.
Yeah,
because the two of those together could have been massive.
Yeah. Lowest yards to win a silver ticket race. So I know we spoke about the lowest yards to qualify, and I think that might have been a bit of a simulation race in Paraguay. But you think a country with a silver ticket race, there's people trying to get on the team actively and going to that race to try and win. So the lowest was Wolfgang Eisel in Austria, who won with 15. So don't know the story there, but it probably some story, tough course, tough conditions. But yeah, got that silver ticket with 15. Heap of team changes. Some of these numbers might have swung out over the last couple of days, but I'll go with the stats I did 3 days ago on these, even though there's a couple changes over the last couple of days. Hungary have the least team changes with 11 out of 15 runners from their 2022 team, so they should be pretty cohesive there. And I think that's really going to be one of the factors for this World Team Champs is, it's not the first time these runners have done this, so looking good for experience in Hungary. And then you've got USA, Netherlands, and Denmark tied for second least changes, although, like I said, USA have made a bit of a late change there. So USA have actually now 9 of their 15 runners from their 2022 team, where Netherlands and Denmark have 10. Then Ecuador and Brazil have the most team changes. They've only got 2 out of 15 runners from their 2022 team, so a bit of experience still there for those teams. And I'm sure with the crews and the organisers, they'll have a bit of a idea of how to get the team together and how to get the most yards as a team. But the runners, quite a few fresh ones. There's 7 countries who only have 3 runners from their 2022 teams. So Ecuador, Brazil aren't alone in that sort of fresh runner field. And overall, it's about 62% of runners from 2022 aren't representing in 2024. So quite a bit of churn, and it probably talks to how young and developing the backyard ultra sport is. Now, this is a cool one. I think the name here at the top is the most interesting. Pato. With your 38 yards, you would have qualified for 54 countries.
Yeah.
That's huge. So again, it's great you live in Australia. I think it's a great country to live in, but it's not a great country to qualify for. You've got to keep...
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing as well, because if I wasn't in Australia being... The good thing about being in Australia and running with all these awesome runners is that it pushes you to go further in your races. So, I mean, if I was in a different country, maybe my PB wouldn't be 38.
Yeah, good point. And some of these countries would have only had 1 or 2 backyard ultras throughout the year, some of the newer countries. So, But there are some countries who are fairly developed that you would have qualified for. The UK, you would have qualified for the UK team. You would have qualified for Spain. You would have qualified for Germany. So there's some pretty decent names, but you're just going to have to give it another crack and qualify for 2026, Pato.
Well, check your passport, see if you've got any heritage over here.
Dom, 30 yards. That's your highest over the last couple of years, isn't it?
Yeah, I've since done 31, but during the last 31 qualification period, it was 30, yeah.
Yeah. 48 countries, so pretty close. Ireland. I don't know if you got some family over there. You can...
I'm going to have to dig into my family records.
Yeah.
See.
You would have qualified for Portugal and Netherlands, which would be pretty cool. I only did 25 yards, but still would have qualified for 40 countries. Iceland, which I think is a cool country to qualify for because they love their backyards over there.
Yeah.
The talent and the numbers they get for their population is huge. So I'm not moving there, though, but it'd be cool to qualify. Denmark and Vietnam would have qualified for.
Yeah.
And then I looked at runners who ran in bigs in 2023, so the individual world champs, and just had a look through who isn't running in the world team champs, and there's quite a few big names. So Bartosz Fidali from Poland, as Dom touched on, 103 he did in bigs. He won't be running for Poland. Ior Veris, 107, obviously, for Canada. He won't be running, which is a huge shame, I think. I would have loved to see what he could do in this event. A couple from Japan. So Teramuchi Morishita, obviously did 101 at bigs. And then Daiki Shibawaki from Japan, 81. Neither of those are running for Japan. So when we look at the Japanese team, they got 2 big runners out, and we'll see that they're still really strong, looking really strong. Oriel isn't running. Again, I think a great runner to watch. So a bit of a shame for the spectators and for his team that he's not there. Jivey for Ireland won't be running. And a few others. Keith Russell for Ireland won't be running. Matt Blackburn for the UK. Not
that's
running.
A big blow for us. Yeah. He's had a race a few weeks ago. He did Spartathlon. So I think that's where all of his focus was. But yeah, he'll be a big miss over here.
Yeah. And for the US, Dan Jovichin pulled out just recently. So he did 54 at bigs, but I think he did 70 during the qualification period. And he's pulled out pretty late in the piece, which is why Bo Shelby got in. He was the unluckiest runner with the highest total but didn't qualify. But at the last minute, he's made it. So hopefully, and I'm sure he has, he's kept up that training.
Yeah. So he's actually the luckiest runner now then, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a Tim Kaprizak story. So hopefully he's been doing that same effort of training that Tim did when he went to Bigs.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about stats, I know there's going to be errors. It was actually great you had Stephen on talking about his book and how in the data that it's hard to get all the data right.
Mm.
I'll give you one example. Phil Gore, you think it'd be pretty easy to look at all his results. But the first time he signed up, the first race he did, he signed up as Philip Gore. So if you ever search through the records looking for Phil Gore, you're going to miss out on that first event. And it's the same with some of these other runners. Sometimes they put their middle name, sometimes they don't. It can be all over the place a bit. One number I'd love to talk about is what I call the benchmark. So what I've done, I've looked at every runner for every country, the highest total they've run during the qualification period. I've added all those up and then adjusted down the highest total to be 1 yard more than the second highest, just to simulate what would happen in an actual backyard ultra. Obviously, if the second highest total is 60, the winner can't go and run 100. So adjusted their number back to 60 plus 1, 61, added all them together, and that's what I've given each country as a benchmark. So not the best indicator of exactly what will happen, and that's why we love the sport. There's going to be so many surprises, and the numbers only tell you so much. But it is, a pretty good indicator of where we're probably likely going to see some of the countries head. For example, if you looked at my numbers and you compared it to Sam Harvey's, Sam Harvey might not do 101. I might not do 25, but you're probably pretty certain he's going to beat me, right? Like it's a fairly good indicator.
It's also a good way to see how much a country's improved from 2 years ago to now, right?
Yeah, definitely. And all the benchmarks are higher than the country's actual result in 2022. So yes, we'll see national records broken. Yes, we'll see team records broken. We'll see personal records broken. I'm sure at the end, the big question is, will we see a world record broken? And maybe as we go through these numbers, we might see where that might happen.
Yeah.
But starting with Algeria, they've got the lowest benchmark. And the reason they've got the lowest benchmark is 14 of 15 runners are officially selected under team selection with 1 yard completed. So very likely those runners haven't run a backyard before. But they do have Lise Makhlouf, who's done 52 yards, which is huge. So for a country that's never competed before, it looks like they've got a reasonable team captain there and some experience there that might help some of the other runners really hit their potential.
Yeah, I noticed he stuck out to me as well. He was actually ran on the French team in 20 and 22. He's moved countries.
There you go. The first error in the data, because I picked him up as not running in 2020 or 2022 because I've been looking at Algeria. But it does stand out. Having a runner of that caliber in a brand new team, it's going to be a huge asset for them. Yeah,
well, he'll be hoping that he can, that one of his teammates can get to 24, because if they finish outside the top 50, but the last one standing is less than 24, then he won't qualify for bigs. He'll be hoping that there's a couple of guns in there that can help carry that total to above 24. And you never know, there might be an unknown in the team who might beat him. Wait and see.
So is that confirmed? That is confirmed from Laz that any country who does more than 24, their national champion will go to bigs.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, that's massive. So some of these newer countries have a lot to play for them.
Yeah.
Moving on to Egypt, Again, it says team selection under their race, so I don't know how this really worked. I'm assuming they did a bit of a simulation run, but their average yards is only 5.5. It looks like Vitaly Bulashov won their simulation with 12 yards, and there's a few runners underneath with 11, 10, 9. So be good to see how they do in Egypt. Then we go to Paraguay. So Paraguay, average yards 7.2. Their highest yards is 14. All these qualifying totals from the same event. So Paraguay Backyard Ultra, which again might be a bit of a simulation run or a bit of a test for these runners to get them ready for this event.
Yeah, countries like Paraguay, like these are the countries that will be busting their asses to get to that 24 yards so they can send a runner to bigs.
Yeah. And I think
did we miss Zambia?
No, we'll get there.
Okay,
we'll
sorry.
I promise. I promise we'll get
Trust
there.
The data, Paddy. Trust the data. You'll get there.
It's a good point with the countries really wanting to go to bigs, and I think for some of these countries, having a national championship is huge. If they get a runner to go to bigs, it gives their home ground runners there something to watch and something to aim for, and might grow a bit of excitement for the next World Team Champs. And come next World Team Champs, they might have a bit more experience and a few more runners with some pretty decent totals.
Yeah.
Botswana, similar, 7.9 yards is their average. There's a number of runners here who look like they ran all in the same event, with Oniel Kilotswe winning with 14. But they do have 5 runners on team selection where maybe they haven't run a backyard ultra before. Maybe they're just really good runners or really good trail runners that have been selected for the team. Cyprus. So Cyprus have an average of 8.6 yards. Stefan Stankovic, and I apologize, I'll butcher some names here. Guarantee there'll be a few butchered names along the way. But actually ran Rasselbach. So he ran Rasselbach Backyard Ultra in 23 and did 24 yards there. So Stefan will be hoping there's someone who can help him push to 24 and beyond and get them to bigs.
And Dom, you were in that race. Do you remember Stefan?
I knew you were going to ask that. I don't, but undoubtedly there'll be a picture of me and him, because I know Eric down at Rasselbach likes to get a picture of all the 24-hour runners. Oh, yeah. I think depending on if it was last year or this year, it was the biggest field actually to ever hit 24 hours. I think there was over 50 runners that did it. Oh, yeah. So I can be forgiven for not knowing Stefan. There was 49 others.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Rasselbach, that's, it's not the easiest of backyards to do 24 hours in either. So yeah, I think he's got more than 24 in him if he can do 24 there.
Yeah, sure. And this was last year too. And I think the weather was a bit colder, a bit windier, or a bit rainy.
Yeah. I think it'll be nicer in Cyprus in October than it is in the UK in March, put it that way.
Singapore. So average yards in Singapore is 11.7, but it's a bit of a interesting one. They've got a whole heap of runners on team selection that they've marked down as 2 yards. I'm not sure if that's an accurate number or just one they've punched into the spreadsheet. But they've got Joshua Toe, who is at bigs. He was at the individual championships and ran 72. So huge runner there. Last world champs, Joshua Toe did 51. So I think we might see some good numbers out of Singapore. And I think some of these team selection numbers will certainly push well above that too, because they've got some experience there. Then we go to Ukraine. So Ukraine averaged 9.1 yards. They do have 5 runners still marked as TBC. It wouldn't be unusual for a country to not field a full team during the World Team Champs, so maybe they are just running with 10. No matter what happens, I think it'd be pretty cool if they run, even if they don't get that full team. And they've got an opportunity, a huge opportunity to get someone to bigs because they've got 3 runners on 24 or more with Victoria hitting 27 at the Race of the Champions. So huge opportunity for Ukraine to someone to bigs. And I know last time at bigs, they weren't able to send anyone. So I think it'd be massive for them to get someone to qualify, even if they don't field a full team. North Macedonia. Again, team selections, but they've got numbers here. So assuming there's some sort of sim run, average of 9.2, Zikia Ivanovsky, highest at 18. So it's one of those unknowns where anything could happen.
Yeah, because they've got no 24-hour runners, so they'll be busting their asses to and do that 24 yards and send someone to bigs.
Looks like it's pretty new sport over there.
Yeah.
So
be interesting to see, won't it, if they're going to have a country like that's going to all of a sudden have someone that just gets themselves on the map. You know, if they've got someone else that can get the assist there, get them 48 or 72 hours. I think there will be one of those sort of countries. I think will come through like that.
Mm.
Yeah, I think a lot of countries would have backyards would have grown when they saw their runner at bigs, individual championships, and then you see them at the local trail races, and at a park run or something, you talk to them, or you host an event and they're there. I think it's a huge opportunity to grow the sport in your country.
Yeah.
Bolivia. So Bolivia's a interesting one. They've got 5 runners at 24 or over, and the other 10 are team selections marked down as 1. So average yard's 9.2, but I definitely think they should definitely get someone to bigs, which would be awesome. And they've got an opportunity to get some pretty decent numbers in there and post a pretty decent total.
Yeah.
Mauritius. Wesley Gordon has done 24 at Hug the Backyard Ultra, which I thought was a pretty wicked name for a backyard. Their average is 11.2. So again, Mauritius will be pushing to get past that 24. Brunei, average 12.3, all marked down as team selection. It looks like they've done some sort of simulation run. Mohammed Amjad Amzan Haji Sudin. I think I did pretty good with that name. 20 yards, highest yard total there. So another one pushing for that 24.
Yeah, I can imagine that Brunei would be a pretty hot and humid place to run a backyard ultra.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing. We'll start talking about some of these start times as we get a bit more towards the pointy end of the countries, but all these different start times are one thing, but all the different conditions, all the different courses, all the different weather, it's definitely going to play a role.
Yeah.
Now we're at Zambia. There you go, Pato. Average 12.7. Winston Wiley, highest total with 17. Another country who looks like it's a bit of a simulation run or a test run they've done. Off to Bermuda. Bermuda sounds like a really awesome place to run. I hope they're on the live stream and we can see where they're running in Bermuda, because I reckon it'll be a pretty spectacular course. 13.5 is their average. They've got Fabri Alvera, who has done 25. They've got Jason Williams, 24. And they're actually the first country we've mentioned who had a silver ticket race. So Run Bermuda Backyard was a silver ticket race.
Right.
Moving past Bermuda to Namibia. Average of 13.2. Andre Ross won a silver ticket at the Brandberg Backyard Ultra with 22. I'm sure Andre's really pushing for that 24. So it looks like there's a few runners there who are just behind that 22 and just below 20. So they've got an opportunity to get up into the 24, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was looking at the website for this race. It's definitely not in it's definitely far away from any towns. I reckon they'd probably have to watch out for the wildcats like lions and stuff like that when they're running this race.
Yeah. How's that for a TNF reason?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they're more comfortable with it than you and I would be. I'd be looking over my shoulder the whole time. Côte d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast. So average 13.2. Backyard Ultra Abidjan. So they've got a Backyard Ultra. They've run there a couple of times. It looks like they've got a couple Backyard Ultras running there. Marius Cacao, one with 19. So they're the highest, but it looks like most of the others aren't too far behind. Just another country pushing to get to that 24, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Which takes us to Guatemala. Guatemala is one of the ones with team selection next to every runner. But Edgar Nemeas Kali, highest with 20. Again, pushing for that 24, but the average is 13.3. A lot of these countries are going to be pretty close with their totals. I think it'll be an interesting race to watch between the newer countries on the ladder. Yeah. Then off to Malaysia with, I reckon, one of the coolest runners to watch out for, Willie David Christopher in Malaysia. Ran 48 at the Pirate Backyard Ultra. Ran last time in 2022. And there's a couple other runners who are running for the second time for Malaysia. They definitely look like they've got a chance to get someone to bigs. I'd be really, really surprised if they didn't hit that 24, because they've got Willie David Christopher, obviously, with 48, then Chin Yung with 28, and So Ying Ong with 24. So average of 16.6 is pretty strong for these newer countries.
Yeah. Did Willie David Christopher, did he run at bigs last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. He did 48 there too, I think.
Yeah, 48 there as well. So yeah. Pretty sure he's done that 48 twice.
Yeah.
Off to Ecuador. Ecuador is starting at 7 a.m. Beautiful time to start. Maybe a touch early, but yes, it's not a bad time for them to start. Average yards 15.7. Santiago Vasquez, their highest at 34. He got that at the World Team Champs 2 years ago, though. So interesting to see how they've developed over the last couple of years, and interesting how Ecuador go. Really hoping they get that 24. I'm sure they do. Not Malaysia. We've done Malaysia. Taiwan. So Taiwan, another silver ticket race in Taiwan with Backyard Ultra Taipei, Haseo Chung Huang, one with 34. Their average is 17, so we're getting up into some pretty decent numbers here. A lot of team selections down as the race, but again, that might be a test run they've done over the last couple months. Uruguay have a couple Backyard Ultras running over there with the Uruguay Backyard Ultra, Legion Backyard Ultra, and there might be a couple others that aren't on this list. But Jonathan Torina is their highest at 26, and their average is 17.4. So a pretty steady team, no massive numbers, but they've got some pretty good chances to get a few runners over that 24 mark.
Yeah.
Colombia, similar. So you've got Juan Esteban Villegas Gonzalez with 25, a few other runners in the 20s, average of 17.5. And then Romania. So Romania is on my list, but I did notice when I was checking yesterday that it looks like Romania has dropped out or won't be running. So that would be a shame. They actually have some pretty good runners on their list. They had 6 runners who weren't named. So I think they were still looking for 6 to round out the team. But the average of the runners who had been named was up around 30. with Octavan Siorescu, the highest at 40. So it'd be a shame if they're not there. But obviously, out of my control.
Yeah.
Moving on to Malta. Malta silver ticket winner Mark Bezina, 30 yards. Quite a few runners there over the 24. So they've got 6 runners on 24 or more. So pretty strong team there. But there are a couple runners who look like they're might be first time bit of a team selection where they're only marked down as 1 yard completed. Even still, their average is 17.8. Off to India. Kartik Joshi isn't running. So Kartik from Biggs, and I think that's a bit of a shame. I'm sure Kartik's got lots of stuff. I know on his social media he's been doing all sorts of cool runs across the country and stuff. But after seeing him Biggs, some disappointment there for him. Would have been great to see him lead his country again like he did in 2022. But even still, they got some good runners there. So Rakesh Kashyap is their highest at 32. And they got, 6 runners on 24 or more with an average of 18.2. So India's definitely a country to watch there. Pakistan, so right near India. Jamal said they're highest at 50. And then you got Fida Muhammad at 49, and a few runners underneath that around the 15s, etc. They average 19.6.
Yeah. So with having 2 good runners like that, they could put on a show and go for a pretty long time.
Yeah.
I know Jamal said did qualify for Biggs last year, but he couldn't get there. So hopefully he can run a big total and qualify.
Yeah. I think it'd be huge for the sport over there and also for Jamal. So to do 50 is one thing, but then to go compete with the world's best and really put yourself to the test. There's no doubt a bigger total in there. And it looks like there's a few other runners there who are probably going to reap the benefits of having a couple at the front, putting in big totals. They're really going to put themselves to the test.
Yeah.
Traditionally strong running country, but new to backyards, Kenya. Average is 18.9. Peter Wambgu Winjuri won a silver ticket with 28. Michael Kihiko, 27. So was the assist there. They've got 4 runners, 24 or more, and everyone else is really close behind. So I know they love running in Kenya. Hopefully they got a good field of supporters out to cheer them on. And again, I think it'd be a cool course to have a look at, because I know they like to run on some nice soft dirt roads. So I wonder what sort of course they've set up for this event.
Yeah, well, you can imagine if Backyard Ultras take off over there, in a few years they might be one of the best backyard ultra running teams there is.
Yeah. Well, a lot of running in Kenya is a big form of income for some of the families there in towns and stuff. So early on with backyard ultras, I wouldn't see why you'd risk running a backyard ultra, injuring yourself and not being able to go do some other races where you were going to earn a living. But now we're starting to see some prize money come through. So it'd be great to see someone do good in Kenya. And then, if they have to go overseas and win 10 grand, which would be awesome for the sport over there. Venezuela. So Venezuela's average is 21.1. Juan Carlos de Jesus Stringer, the highest at 29. And they're a really packed field. So 29, 28, 27, 26, 26. So all really close together. Interesting to see who comes out top there, because I think it'll be a pretty close race for number 1. Yeah,
I know that their number 2 seeded runner, I forget his name, but he qualified to run at Bigs because he was the last one standing 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But he
Moises Lopez.
yeah, that's it. He couldn't get a visa to get there, so he couldn't go. But he looks like a fit dude. Like it looks like he spends a lot of time in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. Maybe I should. Off to Morocco. Morocco average yards 21.7. Abderrahman at Hadal at 32. And they've got, again, 5 runners on 24 or more and a pretty tight field behind them. So they could go pretty big in Morocco, and I'm sure there'll be some PBs in their field there. Then Argentina, 3 silver tickets in Argentina. Their average is 21.6. Lucas Aragona Dominiquez, 27 was their highest, and the field's really packed behind. So 26, 25, 24. Again, who comes out on top is going to be a really hard one to pick.
Yeah. They look to be one of the stronger teams who are making their Sat Champs debut, I think.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of surprises. So some of the ones we've already spoken about, where they've got 2 runners with good totals and some newer runners. Some of those newer runners might be really, really good runners who just haven't really tried out backyards yet. So we're going to see some surprises. Philippines average 21.8. Ryan Baldovino highest at 30 and pretty packed behind Philippines. Then we go to Latvia. Latvia have Ritvars Kaunens with 64, which is a huge total there. So there's definitely some talent on that team. A few runners to support who have done 30 or more, and then a group around that 24 mark. So yeah, their average is 24.5, and they're certainly got an opportunity to get some PBs behind Ritvars there.
Yeah, he's the real deal. He ran at Bigs last year too and did 36 yards, I believe.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, if you're going to bet on that one, I think Ritvars is going to Bigs again, which would be awesome to see. But it definitely looks like the sport's grown over there in Latvia. Turkey starting to get higher in the average yards at 24.7. Savas Laftikara with 36. They've got 4 runners on 30 or more, and then 4 runners on 25 or more. So pretty packed field there, and I reckon they good chance of getting some of those runners up into the 40s. So look out for Turkey. Then South Africa. Average yards 27, really starts to pick up with these average yards now. Thembinkosi, Sajola, 55 at Bigs. So some experience there, and a couple silver ticket winners on 33 and 29, a few other runners on the 30s plus. Looks like a pretty strong field and some opportunities to get some pretty big numbers.
Yeah, that Thembinkosi, he was fun to watch at Bigs last year. He broke the South African record, and when he did 55 yards, he looked like a really strong runner too.
Yeah, well, look, the numbers tell us they'll be going back to Bigs again. Looks like they're a good chance to win there, but interesting to see who comes out as the assist and how deep they go.
Yeah.
Czechia, you got Yaroslav Kopriva with 42 and some pretty good runners to support. So 41, 35, 32, 28. Every runner has 24 or more, but they do have 2 on team selections, which I reckon they would have picked some pretty good runners who maybe haven't run backyards before, but they've marked them down as 1, which means their average is 25.5. But I reckon, yeah, there's some good total numbers for Czechia there. with that field. Israel, they've got 2 runners TBC. So there's two runners they haven't named. They've only got 13 marked on their list. The highest being Tamar Shea with 40, but there's 5 runners with 30 or more, and the rest of the runners are on 24 or more. So really good field with an average of 25.9. Then we are off to Estonia. So Estonia average yards 27.2. Hannes Viidi. This is a cool name for a backyard ultra. Heavy metal backyard ultra.
Yeah.
I reckon they like their heavy metal over in Estonia, because a couple of these backyards are named after heavy metal. But Hannes did 34, and all 15 runners are on 24 or more. So really strong field. We're starting to get into some pretty big numbers.
Yeah, that looks like an open race, that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it could go anyway.
Mm.
I mean, there's no shoe in there for who's going to win. Certainly wouldn't be a country I'd be taking bets on.
Yeah.
But I definitely reckon there'll be some PBs in there.
Yeah.
Similarly, Vietnam. So Vietnam average is 29.3, Bactran highest at 34. But these numbers are so tight. You got 34, 33, 33, 32, 32, 31, 31, 30, 30. Again, you're not going to have a bet on who's going to win that one. I think it's an open race. But working together as a team, I definitely think they're going to be able to push themselves into some unknown territory.
Yeah. And they're one of the night starters too. They have a 7 p.m. start.
Yeah, 7 p.m. I don't know what the weather will be like in Vietnam, but I'm going to guess it'll be pretty humid and pretty warm.
Yeah. It sounds like it would be absolutely perfect. 7 p.m. in Vietnam.
Yeah. Yeah. I reckon starting at 7 is pretty cool. So hopefully the weather's pretty decent for them the following day, because they'll be running for a while.
Mm.
Over to Norway. So first country with an average over 30. Average is 30.5. 4 silver ticket races, all won with over 30 yards. They have 11 runners over 30. And then the runners underneath 30, 29, 28. Anders Johnson with 26. But their highest, Evenid Svellingen, 37. So Norway looked like they could do pretty good things.
Yeah.
Starting to get into some pretty big numbers here. Austria. We got Marcus Scheider with 54. And a fairly packed field around that 30 to support. Their average is 30.7, and this is where Wolfgang Eisel won a silver ticket with 15. So that is Wolfgang's highest result I could find over the last 2 years during the qualification period. Definitely Wolfgang's going to hit a PB.
Yeah.
Like running with that field, guarantee there's going to be a bigger number coming out of Wolfgang there.
Yeah.
And I think what they're looking for is someone to really push Marcus at the top there, and who can help Marcus get into the 60s.
Yeah. And Marcus did run at Biggs last year as well. He did 35 yards at Biggs.
Yeah. So experience, right?
Yeah.
Tough course at Biggs. So it's another variable here is, what are these courses going to be like? We know what the US course is like. They've been tested on Biggs because it is Biggs.
Yeah, it's something that we just don't know, is it? But there does seem to be a trend where more countries are either designing courses specifically for this race to make them conducive to high totals, or choosing the course of an existing race that is the easiest so they can get a high total. That's what it seems to me anyway.
Yeah. What's the UK course, Dom?
Actually, funny you say that. It's a new course for this year. So normally it's always been the Suffolk Backyard course, but Suffolk Backyard itself is moving to a slightly different location, and they're trialing it out the first time for the UK team this year. So it should still be quite flat and like similar foresty type area with nice flat soft trails. But it'd be interesting to see how they do on a completely brand new one.
Yeah. I think fast forward 20 years and there might be some purpose-built facilities for backyard ultras, and half track, half nice soft trail with immaculate toilet at every 500 meters and visibility of your crew the whole way around. But at the moment it's a real mix of tracks they're running on. Slovakia averaged 31.6. Patrick Rotek with 55 at Big Bear's Backyard Ultra. That was a silver ticket. And that again, all their runners over 24. The lowest is 26. But I reckon they've got a good chance to send someone to Bigs, obviously, but get some pretty decent totals there in Slovakia.
Yeah. So Patrick Hortek, he was at Biggs as well and did 34 yards last year.
I think it's cool to see some of these runners like Patrick, who went to Biggs, got a total, and then since then they've improved that total significantly. So you can tell maybe they represented their country and they went home and they kept working and they got some bigger, better totals. So I think there's bigger things to come from some of these runners in some of these countries. Finland, 30.9 is their average. 3 silver tickets. Verni Teppo won a silver ticket with 47, and that's their highest total. Again, all their runners on higher than 24. Again, a packed field. So here I wouldn't want to bet on who's going to win, but they're definitely going to push each other because a lot of them are sitting around that 30 plus mark.
Yeah.
Portugal. So this is a really tight one. Hugo Alves, 39 is their highest. Their lowest is Antonio Manuel Resende Martins with 27, and their average is 32. So most of their runners not too far off each other's PBs. You can throw a blanket over the field. Who takes it out is going to be who wants it most on the day, but they've got a good opportunity to work as a team and push each other further than they've been before.
Yeah. Their top 3 runners, well, their top 3 seeded runners are also the top 3 from 2 years ago, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. We did Finland, didn't we?
Yep.
So then it's Netherlands. Roman Pakbier, who was at Biggs, did 43. Their average is 34.3, really tight. So their totals go 43, 42, 40, 40. Their lowest is 27. So it could go anyway. I think if Roman wants to go back to Biggs, there's some work to put in to make sure they win. But I think it's going to be good for them having so many runners on fairly similar PBs heading into unknown territory together. They should be putting together a decent total for their country.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what their course is like, but they say that the best place to go to practice for the biggest trails is the Netherlands.
Yeah. Do you reckon that's true, or do you reckon that's just something Laz says?
I still don't know. What do you think?
I wouldn't trust anything he says.
It's one of those like I think it sums up some of Laz, right? He says it so earnestly, but you're not sure what the meaning. Such a simple thing to say, with a simple group of words, but you're not sure exactly what it means. I don't know if it means it's the best place or the worst place, but Switzerland. So Matteo Tencio, highest with 62, and then Nima. I think Nima was at Biggs last year, weren't they?
Yeah, he was. He dropped
Yeah,
a lot earlier than I expected him to, but I think he had some pretty serious stomach
Yeah,
issues going on. Yeah, but he was actually unbeaten up to that point.
yeah.
He
Well,
was it
Nima
just
ran 55 at Suffolk, so pretty good total there. And I think it looks like there might be a bit of a battle at the top between Nima and Matteo to see who gets to go back to bigs.
yeah.
he was really strong at Suffolk. Really, really strong. He had his parents there crewing him as well, and had a really top setup. And they were there washing his clothes and everything for him. He had a really nice setup to lay out and chill in. I know this year he's been doing a lot of work. He's done some crazy elevation challenges, seeing where he's sort of gone up, the same height of Everest a couple of times. I think he might have set a record for the amount of elevation he's done over a short period. So if he's recovered from that, he could be, could be in a really strong position to go far.
Yeah, I believe he works with Gabby Villa as well. She's his nutritionist.
Ah,
But
that shouldn't be that shouldn't be allowed. That's cross country collaboration.
did you chat with him at Suffolk, Dom?
I did, yeah, towards the end. I kind of actually spoke a bit more with his parents than I did with him when they were down to the last few running. But he's just one of those genuinely really nice guys, always got a smile on his face, and just left absolutely everything he had out there and just came back completely broken, but really loved the whole experience. And he's the sort of person you want to cheer for because you want to see him do as well as he possibly can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting to see what their course is like, because it is a really hilly place, right? Switzerland. So interesting to see how they've put their course and what that will be like. I'm not surprised Nema's been putting in quite a bit of elevation because it's probably his driveway. Ireland. So Ireland don't have Jivey or Keith Russell running, which is a bit of a hit for them. At Bigs, Jivey did 81 and Keith did 74. So big runners to not be running there, but the rest of the field is pretty strong. So they've got Peter Cromie, who won a silver ticket with 50, Wayne McGuire with 43. The lowest total is 28, so 28 to get on their at large list. And their average is 36.3, so above that total field average.
Jivey was definitely one of the most. Well, he ran one of the most memorable races at Bigs last year, I thought. Like, he was just coming in with just a minute or two to spare for a long time. And but Peter Cromie, their number one seed, he has a lot of backyard ultra experience. He actually ran at Bigs back in 2018.
Ah. Yeah, cool. I wonder if for some of these countries, you wonder if Jivey will be there supporting or will pop down and help out a bit, or whether he's trained with a few of them. Or...
Well, I follow Jivey on Instagram, and he's in a different country nearly every day. So I don't know. Like, he spends a lot of time in Iceland. I know he was going to run a race in Iceland, but didn't, or something like that. But and he's coming to Dead Cow Gully next year too.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, Jivey was awesome to watch at Bigs. We all talk about, I don't want to give up in the chair. And I think 95% of the time, even when you don't give up in the chair, runners are making that mental decision in the chair that they won't make the next lap, and then all of a sudden they don't make the next lap. Where Jivey literally ran until it looked like there was nothing left, absolutely nothing left of Bigs.
Yeah, well, he was passed out on the road.
Yeah. So hopefully that doesn't happen at Dead Cow, but awesome to run some laps.
Yeah.
Then we go to Iceland. So Jivey's not on their team. I'll just double check. No. Their average is 35.7. So Iceland haven't done this stat, but it'd be great to look at how many runners have participated in a backyard versus their population. And they must have one of the highest. Some of their backyard ultras get well over 200 participants in them. And I think the total population of Iceland's only around 200,000. So massive there.
Well, one thing I've noticed with Iceland is they've definitely got the highest ratio of like females running them. It's about 50-50, whereas everywhere else it's the majority male runners. But Iceland it's definitely 50-50 male to female ratio. And their top two seeded runners are women, Marie and Elisa. And I believe they're both coming to Dead Cow Gully next year as well.
Yeah, cool. One thing that isn't, and you would have noticed I haven't mentioned, is the percentage of female runners in every country. You can definitely see an increase overall. I think it's a good thing, though. They haven't been marked as male or female on the rosters. So I'm not brave enough to go with some of these names and try and guess whether they're male or female, because it's not something you can do just from reading a name. But yeah, it definitely does look like there's a high percentage of female runners across the total field.
Yeah.
Thorleifsson, 50 at the Race of Champions.
Yep.
25 at Bigs, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't Thor's day, but I think he was in the background of every single runner from that moment on. If you're watching the live stream, he was there helping lots of runners out all the way through to the finish.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll also mention like Andri Gudmundsson. I know he listens to the podcast. And Frederick Benediktsson does as well, and he's coached by Sam Harvey. So
yeah.
I like the Iceland runners.
Yeah. Didn't Frederick put out a warning to Thor that he was going to become the champion of Icelandic backyards?
Yeah, I think he set himself a bit of a challenge. Yeah.
Well, there you go, Frederick. It's your national championships. If you're listening to this while you're running, you got to put your money where your mouth is. But yeah, really strong field there. Again, their average is 35.7, which I think is huge for a country like Iceland. That's massive. Brazil, I know they love their backyards in Brazil. Starting at 9 a.m, pretty good time to start. Although it does sound like a humid place to run. Also sounds like there might be some wildlife. Hopefully not on the course. But their average is 37.7, well above that total field average. David Mello Ameldia with 50 is their highest. Most of them packed in around that 36 to 40 mark, with a silver ticket winner, Odara Maria de Souza, with 24.
One of the things that I noticed with Brazil is that only 2 runners are returning from last Sat Champs, but the team looks a lot stronger than last time. 2 years ago, they finished in 33rd place, but this year they're the 17th seeded nation when you add up.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, their total result was 258 laps, and just looking at these numbers, doing that benchmark puts them at 544. So well over doubling that total, which is huge. And when you consider the amount of team changes, they also don't have Rennie coming to run, who ran it at Bigs. So, even with a fresh team, a lot of change, they look like they're going to double their total at least from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Denmark. So I've put them down as a 16th seed, 37.9. That's their average. They start at 2 p.m. Fairly reasonable time to start. Should give them a lot of time to set up and get ready. Get plenty of sleep. They're not waking up too early. Highest is David Stoltenborg, 73 at the Race of Champions was the assist there. So I
was just going to say they finished 7th in the world last time.
Yeah, 7th in the world. So last time they did 541 as a total. The benchmark this year puts them down at 547. I think that's a bit undercooked when you look at some of these runners. It only takes one to get a PB, and they'll be pushing a few of the other runners a lot further. But yeah, ranked 16th, and that just goes to show, yeah, their numbers look like they're improving, but a lot of these other countries, their numbers are through the roof.
Yeah.
Through the roof.
Yeah.
We're getting into the pointy end now. So Spain got them ranked 15th. Their average is 42.2 yards. So that's 42 is a massive total, and that's their average. Although I do have Oriole here. So maybe I spoke poorly, and his name is spelt slightly different on the numbers on the slide. So
It might be one of those with the middle name included, like you mentioned before, messing with the data.
I mean, I have trouble pronouncing it every time, but maybe the sheet's got it's above the eye. What do you call them things? A little squiggle above the eye.
Right.
So good news, Oriole's in. That's massive. Sorry, Spain, if you were listening before. good news, Oriole is in. So that'll be cool to watch Oriole in Spain. 89 was his total at Bigs. That's their biggest total. But they've got a packed field. They've got Danny Corvo with 50, Jose Manuel Ruiz Verdugo with 47, Felix Sanchez Parra with 45. There's some pretty big numbers here. And yeah, vastly improved on a couple of years ago. It looks like they're going to set some pretty big totals. I'm happy that Oriole's running.
He's definitely got a cult following, doesn't he? He wears those
the shirts,
flying burritos.
That's it, flying burritos.
Yeah. And again, he's another lovely bloke as well, who he's one of those that you can characterize as saying he's going to be a triple digit runner if he carries on.
Yeah. Did you speak to him much at Suffolk last year, Dom, or this year?
Yeah. Yes. I think he's been there a couple of years now. Yeah. He's always one of those that's happy to chat with anybody as he's going around. Again, really nice, genuine bloke that leaves absolutely everything out there. He was the one who fell asleep on a bench. I can't remember if that was this year or last year at the Suffolk backyard, only to be woken up by another runner. Yeah, he's again another really nice bloke. Had some knee issues this year, running at Suffolk, but still managed to go quite far for him. So when he's fully firing, if he's got someone there with him, he can go 100 hours plus for sure.
Yeah.
I know at Biggs, Oriole was running fairly consistent slower laps, so around that 55-minute mark, and then would throw in the occasional, sub 40-minute loop to, get some stuff done, change clothes when he needed to, get a good rest. Was it a similar tactic in Suffolk?
Yeah, so the Suffolk course is a lot more straightforward than Biggs, but it was still definitely one of the slower runners there. But he just doesn't need as much sit down recovery time. He can just keep grinding them out. I think was it Biggs last year? He had like the last 24 hours or so he did were all about 55, 56, 57. He just carried on. Crazy to see.
Yeah, I remember looking at the numbers for Biggs, and I thought there was an error because there probably were errors, but I thought there was an error in his times because there was just a couple loops that didn't look like they belonged, and it was just him running consistently steady around that 55, and a couple that he threw in under 40 and then went straight back to that 55.
Mm.
So really, really cool to watch. I do love those shirts too. So
yeah. Do you have one, Dom? A flying burrito shirt?
I don't, but I could possibly get one before Suffolk next year because I know the guys at Suffolk Backyard, Lindley and Stephen Cousins, kind of like those, and I know Stephen was wearing one over the weekend, so I think there might be a bit of a collaboration there between the Suffolk Backyard guys and Flying Burritos.
Yeah, I reckon they'd suit you. You'd look good in a flying shirt, I reckon.
Looks a little bit loud for me, but you'll be the first to get a picture if I get one.
Yeah, awesome.
Or come over to Suffolk yourself, you guys, next year. Get one first hand.
I would love to do that. I would love to run at Suffolk.
Yeah,
definitely a course with some big numbers.
Yeah, maybe 2026. I'll come over.
Get yourself on the Aussie team for 26 by qualifying over here.
Yeah.
Germany. So Germany got them ranked 14th. Hendrik Borey is in. So Hendrick ran 82 at Suffolk. Another runner you would have seen there, Dom. How'd Hendrick look?
Really good, really fresh again. He's another one, exactly the same, I'd say, as Oriel, in that he's a triple-digit runner, no doubt in my mind, if he wants to be. He obviously did Barkley earlier this year as well. So his running is growing. And it's good to see him on there because I wasn't too sure if he was going to run for Germany. But he's like in a very similar to Oriel in Spain, and also like we'll get onto the UK team with John, in that he's kind of his highest is a lot higher than anybody else on the team. So the really interesting thing will be, is anyone else there capable of going that far with him to get him there?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's a world record for person who's run the furthest pushing a pram, but Hendrick would have to go close because I follow him on Strava. He runs about 30 to 40 Ks a day pushing his child in their pram.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen a couple of sub 3 hour marathons pushing a pram.
Yeah.
He's a machine.
Yeah.
And around London as well. So, it's not just nice, easy, straightforward running.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I wonder if we see the pram on a couple laps. I don't know if might not be allowed in a backyard. But yeah, to your point, Dom, Germany is one of those countries where Hendrick really stands out as the highest total at 82, and then Yannick Giesen behind at 48, and a heap of runners at really strong totals, 45s down to 30. But you wonder who's going to step up and really push Hendrick. It would be great to see Hendrick back at Biggs. Yeah. It was one of the biggest stories of Biggs last year, and one of the most heartbreaking moments I've seen in running. Seemed like such a nice guy as well. I don't know if you've met him, Dom.
Yeah. So I've run with him a few times, speak to him every now and again, and he is exactly as you think he would be. Really, really nice guy. Spoke to him quite a bit just about how, what it's like for him going to the Barkley, and spoke to him a bit at Suffolk the last few years. I know some of the people that have helped crew him as well. So yeah, I really want to see him go far, and I'm sure he'll be at Biggs next year.
Yeah, and that'll be awesome to watch because he was definitely at Biggs. He was definitely looking like someone who could have gone to triple digits.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah. So moving on from Germany, we head to the United Kingdom.
I'm lucky number 13 on your ranking.
So yeah, 13th, average 43.1. John Stocker, 74 at Suffolk. And then to your point earlier, Dom, a heap of runners, about 46 down to high 30s. But the question is, who's going to step up and run with John, especially with Matt Blackburn out?
Yeah, so Matt's a bit of a blow. Touched on earlier, it's both him and Andy Day for the UK qualified, but couldn't run because they were doing Spartathlon. Both very, very strong runners. Matt's one of those that could easily do 100 yards. Well, easily. He's capable of doing 100 yards, so it would be a big miss. Andy as well could easily push sort of 50, 60. So it's a shame they're not there. But there's a lot on there actually that are capable of going quite far with John and surpassing their bests. I do see a few plus 48-hour runners here from the UK. There's a couple of names that haven't really been tested. Mike Raffan, he's been around the backyard circuit for a while. He won Rasselbuck earlier this year with 42. He can definitely go far with John. His assist there as well was Sarah Perry, so she got 41, and the only reason she stopped was because she had to go to work. So I wasn't there for the end of it, but I heard people saying she definitely had more in the tank. So she's one I think to watch for how far she can go. A few others maybe you'll know, Pato as well, Alex Sweet. He's done 40. He's capable of going quite far. We also potentially got our first husband and wife combo on there with Julie and Ian Bethune. I don't know if there've been many more countries like that, but they've got 37 and 38 between them. Be interesting to see how they can do together.
Yeah, husband and wife combo. That's an interesting one because you've got a split crew, right? A lot of people would be relying on their partners, their spouses, their family to be crew. I wonder if they're sort of sharing a crew, sharing a corral, or whether they got their own teams.
That's funny you say it. I think they have got they've got someone in to help them, because they put a post out on one of the UK backyard pages about that they normally crew each other. So they have got some people in to help them over the weekend. So yeah, it'd be good to see how far they can go together.
Yeah, and I saw it's worth mentioning as well. Julie Bethune actually quit her job to run at the Sat Champs because they wouldn't give her unpaid leave.
That's the dedication for you, isn't it? That's somebody you want on your team.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So Sarah Perry had to stop at 41 because she had to go to work, and Julie quit her job because she wants to keep running. Yeah,
so
wow.
Keep an eye on the UK women. Strong.
Yeah. Huge.
And I haven't even mentioned Karen Nichol on that as well. She's got a good background of backyard running in the UK. So I don't know. I can see anyone on that UK team going 48. To be honest with you, just be interested if anyone else can push sort of 72 plus with John.
Yeah. Well, I've got a big watch on Alex Sweet. He's one of the first guys from overseas who actually messaged me to say he listens to the podcast. So I've got a soft spot for Alex.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's very sweet of him to reach out.
Hey.
So yeah, UK is going to be a really cool race to watch, I think. We've seen big totals on Suffolk if it's running in Suffolk, but it's slightly altered course there. That sounds like they can get some really big numbers.
Yeah, I'm expecting bigger from the actual Suffolk backyard next year. Just I think the field there, they've extended to 350 as well. But yeah, let's see how the test run goes and how many of those can get over 2 days, potentially into a third or a fourth.
350. That's a huge field.
Yeah. I think it's 250 at the moment, but with this move to the new course, kind of with a view to getting more runners on there.
One question, Dom. What's the weather like there at the moment? Is it good?
Cold and wet and miserable. But it's getting a little bit better. Like this last weekend was really, really cold. Right. But it's actually due to get a bit better next weekend. Not too much rain, so kind of decent conditions for running in, really.
Okay, that's good.
Starting at 1 o'clock, so not a terrible time to start. Italy. So Italy, I've got them ranked 12th. Their average is 42.2. Antonio Di Mano, who we saw at Suffolk, run 29. Massive total there. Yeah, 79, sorry. Suffolk, that was massive.
Yeah, he's a lot like Oriole. He's got that cult figure look about him, doesn't he? People like watching him run.
Yeah, he's a good-looking runner. By the way, he makes it look good.
I thought you were going to say he's a good-looking rooster.
Well, he's a bit of a good-looking rooster too, but yeah, when he's running, he looks really comfortable. He looks really, really good. He doesn't seem to have too many tough moments. He's always smiling, always happy.
Yeah.
What was he like at Suffolk, Dom?
They're very strong again, and one of those always wearing a smile. Interestingly as well, he did have somebody there to crew him, but he was in sort of like the communal area of, where you've got people that are uncrewed initially. So he didn't have his own tent set up. He was just kind of in with a lot of other runners, and it didn't really seem to affect him performance-wise, still managing to get 79 yards. I think he set up his own backyard as well recently, I've seen somewhere. Yeah. So he clearly loves the sport. So it'd be good to see if anyone else. I think there's somebody else that's gone over 60 on the Italian team, but other than that, don't know if there's anyone else that has previously gone as far as him, but potentially he might be able to take a few with him sort of into the second, third day. Yeah,
they've got Danielle Lazzoni, who's done 61, a few runners in the 40s, so they've got 4 runners in the 40s, and it goes all the way down to 31. So he's definitely leading at the front with a big total, but there are a few runners behind who have, done some big things. He should be able to push him, and it'd be great to see him at Bigs next year. Moving to Sweden, almost in the top 10, so ranked 11th. Sweden's average is 43.7. Nicholas Sjöblom, 62 at the Race of Champions, and they've got a really packed field. So they've got 5 runners on 42, 5 runners on 41. The lowest is 39. Branislav Pavic, who's done 56, should be there to support Nicholas as well. So overall, I think they're going to get some pretty good numbers as a team, given almost all their runners are sitting over 40.
It's a big out though, with Toby not running.
Yeah.
He's been to Bigs 2 or 3 times, I think. He's an awesome runner.
Did 69 loops in Bigs last year, so definitely a big out for them. But that said, they've still got a really strong team.
Yeah, I think they're one country that runs more backyards per capita than any other country, or something like that. They run a lot of backyard ultras over there.
Probably fighting it out with Iceland.
Yeah,
maybe I will do those numbers after the Sat Champs. I'll have a look. Ranked 10th, Hungary. So Hungary's average is 44.1. Slizard Fodor with 64 at Legends. Then they've got 2 runners, Peter and Edit, who have done 51. Gulas Sarosi with 50. They've got heaps of runners in the 40s. They got like 8 runners here in the 40s, and their lowest is 33. So highest at 64. A lot of runners there who can support. And yeah, I think they're going to get a pretty decent total, Hungary, which is fair. Last Sat Champs they came 6th, so I've ranked them 10th. Definitely going to post a bigger total than they did last time, but they're going to be up against it to try and achieve that 6th rank again, because some of the teams we're just about to talk about have really shown improvements over the last couple of years.
Yeah, Fodor's a good runner to watch, but that 64, he hasn't reproduced a performance like that since Legends when he ran that race.
Yeah, so that was April 15th, 2023. So it's not all that long ago, not worlds away. Some of the numbers go, as we know, the qualification period is all the way back to last World Team Champ. So some of the numbers are from 2022. But there is a bit of unknown when you start to look at when these were set, and a lot of them were set in 2023. So maybe just hasn't been too tested since then. But yeah, interesting to see what happens when they're all working together, trying to push that total as high as they can.
Yeah.
Now here's a cool one, ranked 9th, New Zealand. Average of 47.9. Sam Harvey actually won a silver ticket. So he won Crazies to get in. Certainly didn't need to win that silver ticket because his highest during qualification period was 101. But I think that was the 3rd time in a row he won Crazies. So that tempted him to go back more than the silver ticket itself. But then the real question is, who's going to run with Sam? Who's going to run into that unknown the furthest?
Yeah.
Because the second highest total here is Anthony Kerr-Taylor with 52. Then we've got Simon McLean and John Bain with 51. Jeremy Pelvin with 50. Some of these runners to get to Sam's PB are doubling their PBs. So someone's going to go into the unknown here, and Sam's going to have to, lead them into places they've never been before.
Yeah. They definitely have the most inconvenient start time with 1 a.m.
1 a.m., yeah.
I'm putting a huge watch on them. I reckon that they could be the big improvers. They've picked out, they're one of the countries that have actually gone out and found a location and designed a course specifically for this race. And they've tried to keep it as flat as possible. And most of their races have a lot of elevation. That race that Anthony Kerr-Taylor ran the soil record of 52 on, that was almost 5,000 metres of elevation he ran in that race. So I think that they're going to be not only capable of finishing in the top 10, I reckon they're a chance of finishing top 5. I'm putting a huge watch on them.
Do you know where it's being held in New Zealand?
I think it's in the South Island somewhere.
Righto, yeah.
I've never been there, but I know it's South Island somewhere.
Yeah, cool.
I think.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Some of these countries really picking the right location and finding that perfect spot, because some countries would have almost sacrificed finding the perfect spot for, logistics reasons and stuff, instead of the best course they've found the most convenient, or just where they can get permits to have it held, or where it's available at the time and stuff. So if they've got these runners tested all the way into the 50s on some tough courses, they've got Sam Harvey out the front, who knows what it's like to go into unknown, because his PB was 46 or 47 before he did 101.
Yeah, he did 46 2 years ago at the Sat Champs.
Yeah, so he knows what it's like to go from 46 all the way to 101. So if they've got the course right, they've got Sam Harvey there leading them, I think it's a huge race to watch, and I think there'll be a handful of runners there running for a very long time.
Yeah.
So this benchmark score that I've put together, like I said at the start, it's counting Sam Harvey as 53 yards, because it's assuming he's doing one more than Anthony Kerr-Taylor. But the real question mark is how many of the other runners going to do, and how far can they push it?
Yeah.
Then we head into Mexico. So Mexico ranked 8th on my benchmark, average of 47.3. Highest is Rodolfo Ramirez Leondes with 75. Then you've got Reis Sativo, who ran at Bigs with 67, and a heap of other runners right with them, 65, 57, 47. I think it'd be a cool one to watch again. A couple omissions that I've noticed. When I first looked at the numbers, Ignacio Castro was down with 60 yards, and Jesus Alberto Gonzalez was down with 41. They're no longer on the list, so they're omissions from their team. But they've definitely got a heap of runners there who are capable of going really deep. And start time of 6 a.m. in Mexico, which is maybe a touch early, but not too bad. I think runners are used to starting runs at 6 a.m.
Yeah. And it's not a surprise either. Like, it's not like they find out the day before what time. It's not like the Barkley Marathon where they don't know what time they're starting. They've got time to prepare for this.
Yeah, they'll be banking their sleep all week, I think, this week, and getting ready for it. Certainly not an inconvenient time.
Yeah.
Canada, big omission here is Eeyore Veres. Obviously, Eeyore's the assist at Bigs last year, ran 107. And seems like that bloke who would have been a great support mentally and emotionally for the team. So hopefully Eeyore's reached out to the team and spoken to the runners, done some training with the runners, and maybe even heads down there and cheers them on. I'm sure he'll be supporting them from wherever he is. Eric Deshays with 66 is their highest, but I think one of the coolest runners to watch here is Amanda Nelson, who did 57 at Bigs. Amanda was phenomenal to watch there, hit a PB. And Bigs is a tough course, so really interested to see how far Amanda can push herself on home soil for this championship.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning Justin Wright, who's been on the podcast with me and Dom before. He's running for Team Canada this time. 2 years ago, he was on Team USA.
Which is why I've put him down as not running in 2022 and 2020. Confusing.
Yeah. There's also Victoria Brown is worth mentioning as well. She's in the team for the second time. And she recently posted on Facebook a photo of her doing her first half marathon 9 years ago. And so since then, she's one of the best ultra runners in the world now. She's breaking records and running for Team Canada. I love stories like that.
Yeah, it's going to be a really cool race to watch, and looks like a pretty strong female representation in Canada.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a heap of female national champs, and I think Amanda Nelson's got a good opportunity there in Canada to take it out. But overall, I mean, they've got a lot of runners who can run with each other well into the 50s, so it's not a surprise. I've got them ranked there 7th, even without Eeyore on the team. They're definitely going to be a big contender for the overall championship. Then we head into a country who's participating for the first time, but they're ranked 6th, which is phenomenal. And they've got a couple big names out. Well, they've got a very big name out. And that's Poland. So we spoke about Poland before. Bartos isn't running, which is a huge hit. Bartos ran 103 at Bigs and was one of the fastest runners out there. So Bartos was a rocket. And on the Bigs course, being that comfortable, running that fast for that long is just amazing. But that said, even without Bartos, Lukash is their highest with 88. They've got Thomas with 69, Patrick with 63. They've got some huge numbers in here. So, yeah, Poland being ranked 6th, it's their first time in the World Team Champs, and they're missing a big name with an average of 51.1 yards. That's just massive. Huge things are going to come from Poland.
Yeah. Yeah, they're tough dudes, the Poles. And we did mention before how good Lukasz Robel was at Suffolk, but was that the best performance you've ever seen in person, Dom?
I think so, yeah. Just from not just the race, but also just afterwards. Sometimes you'll see people put these effort in and they are completely broken afterwards. But the fact that he was almost normal kind of is insane to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. He definitely could have done so much more.
Yeah. Yeah, you hear about you hear people question if one day will the runners in Backyard Ultras find a homeostasis and just go forever. And I think that that performance is probably the closest to that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's almost just something robotic, like muscle memory kicking in. This is what you do. This is my life now. I'm just running in circles every hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both fast runners, Bartos and Lukasz, fast as well. So I don't know if that's a Polish style of running or just, the sort of races they have over there, but they both seem really comfortable running at a fast pace. So wonder what the course is like there. We might see some really fast laps coming from the Polish team.
Mm.
Heading to 5th ranked is France. So France have an average of 56.5. You got Christophe Bord with 77, which was at Bigs, the individual championships. Couple silver ticket winners in Nicholas Cointepis with 63 and Christophe Ruat with 62. Then the amazing Claire Banworth with 61, which she did at Suffolk. And Claire's one of those runners who has represented France in 2020, 2022, and now 2024, along with Christian Mardouit, who's done the same. So I'm really excited to see France. Looking at these numbers, there's definitely runners who can go really deep. And, I mean, their lowest is Jerome Charlton with 45. Every other runner is over 50. So huge numbers to be set in France.
Yeah, I mean, if everything goes right, they could be fighting out the finish. Like they could be in there right at the end. And I was looking at the second seed, Nicolas Cointerpass. It looks like he's an ultra running legend. Like he's done so much. He's run all the big races. He's only run 2 backyard ultras and finished last one standing in both of them, 56 and 63 yards. So who knows how far he can go.
Yeah, that's a good point. With you got Christoph with 77, and then Nicholas and Christoph Ruat beneath him with 63 and 62. They're silver ticket winners, so they set those totals. Well, actually, Christoph Ruat didn't, but Nicholas set that 63 and won, so that's untested. There could be a much bigger number in Nicholas Cointerpass.
Yeah.
But I'm going to love watching Claire. I think Claire's one of those runners that came out of Bigs and was a bit of a crowd favourite. The opposite of the Polish runners we just said were fast. She was just a machine. She was coming in with a few minutes, no stress. It was just her plan, and heading back out. And if you saw one lap, you might think she was cutting it a bit fine, but she was the most consistent runner out of all of the runners at Bigs. All her loops were within about a minute of each other, every single one.
You've run with her a couple of times, Dom?
Yes, I have, yeah, at Suffolk. Not directly having run with her, purely because, as Tim was saying, her pace is very, very slow, but it's perfectly what works for her. Exactly as Tim said, the first time we saw her, we thought, coming in with not too much time, but then 3 days later, like hit the third day, she's still there going. Yeah, she's a very impressive runner.
Yeah.
Now to Belgium, ranked 4th. So I reckon Belgium, if I ran for any country that wasn't Australia, Belgium would be the place I'd go, because they seem like the bunch of people who have the most fun running these backyards and all the crazy races they have over there.
Yeah, they look like a tight unit.
Yeah, so I think that cohesiveness of the team is going to be massive. They've got 7 runners who ran in 2022, and I know a lot of the runners there run with each other every week. They're running with each other quite a bit. Average of 59.5. You got Marin and Evo with 101, which they set. Evo set 101 back at the World Champs with Marin. And then Frank the Tank with 97 that he set at Big Dogs. Matthias Pelgrims, 74 at Big Dogs. Kevin Snyder's 68 at Big Dogs. Really big names. And a few silver ticket winners with some lower totals. So the lowest is Jelly Tillemans with 32, but again, 1. So a bit untested in that particular race. And I think as a team, it's certainly going to be one to watch, because I know 2 years ago, correct me if I'm wrong, Pato, that they had when you had Evo and Marin on, they were talking about how well they had the course set out and the facilities they had.
Yeah.
So they're already at that point. So I'm guessing this year they'd have it set up really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell that they're a close unit. Frank the Tank, he'll be absolutely frothing at the mouth.
Yeah.
For another opportunity to bring up triple figures. And if I had to put my life on one country to break 100 at these SAT champs, I'd go for Belgium.
Yeah. We might get to it later. I reckon there'll be more than one country that'll hit 100.
Yeah.
But I would be surprised if Belgium don't. If they don't, because I mean, they've got a heap of runners here. They've probably got 7 or 8 that are just ready to hit 100, waiting for that opportunity. So definitely going to be huge. They're a little bit different to New Zealand. So in New Zealand, the benchmark score dragged Sam Harvey down to 1 above the person with the second highest total. With Marin and Evo both at 101, this benchmark number is taken in the full total. So maybe it's forecasting a little bit high, but I don't think so. I think Belgium are going to be right up there. Obviously, 2 years ago, they finished second, and that was amazing to watch with Marin and Evo, the last one, standing globally.
Yeah.
And if Frank the Tank, if you listen to this, don't eat the yellow snow. That's the tip.
Yeah.
Then to Japan. Japan ranked third, and Japan is a very, very interesting one to look at. When you look at their list, it is very different to other countries. So they had all their silver ticket races, all 6 silver ticket races on the same day, the 23rd of November, 2023. And when you consider Bigs was in October 2023, this is just a few weeks after Bigs. So the big runners who went over to Bigs didn't necessarily have the right condition, the right training to enter these races. So they held them all over Japan, and I think that's given them a really good opportunity to get runners from all across the country to qualify for the national team, which is huge. And to be honest, when I saw they were doing that, I thought it would really hinder their performance. I thought if you have all these all on the same day, the best runners can't win each, because there might be an assist in one, there might be an assist over here. You're not going to put yourself in a position to have the strongest team by having them all on the same day. But here I am saying I'm ranking them third by the numbers. Their average is 58.3 yards, which is just massive.
Yeah.
And they do have a couple big names out. Like we said, Mori, who did 101 at Bigs, isn't running, and Daiki Shibawaki, who did 81, is out. So considering that, their average of 58.3 is just phenomenal.
One of the things that stuck out when I was watching the Japanese runners at Bigs was how well they stuck together and ran as a team. They were all running together the whole time. So I imagine that they'll be a really tight running unit at this weekend as well.
Yeah. It's going to be, I think, another country you could bet your house on to break 100 would be Japan. Yukinori Yoshida with 85, Akira Maeda, who set 83 at Bigs, Tokimasa Hirata with 74, Michitaro Mizuno with 70, Tetsuo Kiso with 70. Like there's a stacked field here. There's really, really strong runners. Only 3 who ran in 2022, so it is a bit of a fresh team. And I think some of that comes down to how they ran the silver ticket races. But they've got a huge field here, and I think it's definitely one to watch.
Yeah.
Their start time, though, is 9 p.m. So not the most awkward time. It's not 1 a.m. like New Zealand have. But I'm sure they'd certainly like to be starting earlier than that. So hopefully they're getting a whole heap of sleep all day Saturday and waking up fresh late in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Then to a country you might know a little bit about, Pato, Australia. I've got them ranked second with an average yards of 62.2. Little known runner Phil Gore with 102, which he set at the Masters at Dead Cow Gully. And then it's an absolutely packed field. And I know I joke you might know a little bit about them. We know a bit about the Australian team, and a lot of them have been on your podcast, and you had the episode running through the field there. But there's a heap of runners here who are capable, ready, and it looks like they've put the training in. They're at their peak to run over 100.
Yeah.
Rob Parsons, 84, definitely a triple-digit runner. You got Ryan Crawford with 75 officially, but recently did 72 with James Blanton and called it a day because they thought that was enough, or like didn't seem like they stopped because they needed to stop. They stopped because they chose to stop.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I reckon at least 10 of the 15 runners in the team believe that 100 is something that they can reach, and the course is probably the flattest course in Australia. I mean, you're not going to get a better opportunity for Australia to just absolutely go berserk. And I even think the 8 p.m. start time is a good thing. I mean, I think you can just sleep in for as long as you like, an afternoon nap. You don't have to worry about waking up at 3 a.m. and feeling stressed that you're not going to be able to go back to sleep. Yeah, I'm so excited that I'm going to be over there for it, and yeah, it's going to be unreal. What do you from afar, Dom? How do you see the Australian team?
I think my view on it's a bit biased, probably from listening to your podcast, but I just see Australia as being probably the biggest threat to any other country, to be honest with you, in terms of the potential they have for how many you've got that have hit 72 plus. Obviously, seeing what Phil's done, hitting 100 plus twice. Interesting seeing Tim on there. I wonder if maybe in 2 years' time, we mentioned the husband-wife combo. Could we have a father-son combo in 2 years' time as well?
Yeah.
How, where you got young runners like Ollie coming through as well. Yeah, I think Australia, without doubt, are going to be 1 or 2 ranking come the end of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Emissions. So I know there's more than this. I know Margie's pulled out. So Margie won the silver ticket with 40, and unfortunately Margie can't make it. Do you know who else would have qualified, Hello, but they have chosen not to run?
I know John Yoon would have made the team. He also is one of those ones who went to Spartathlon. Off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
Yeah.
Who else isn't there who would have qualified?
So there's eight runners who ran 2 years ago at the World Team Champs. And I'm sure this is fairly similar for some of the other countries. When we spoke about Belgium, mentioning a lot of those runners run together quite a bit, and they're a pretty close-knit team. You've got a runner like James Blanton who, has shared a few yards with Ryan Crawford, and Ryan Crawford ran in 2020 and ran in 2022. So there's a lot of experience there. Johan Botha, no newbie at performing on the world stage. So I'm sure he's up to the challenge. Ben Nichols, you got a whole heap of people here with a lot of experience, really, really tight. Tim and Joel working together. I think it's going to be a really, really tight-knit team, which is a step up from where it was 2 years ago. And even 2 years ago was a step up on where it was in 2020. So it feels like it's really evolved into a proper team environment and situation this year for Australia.
Yeah, and the thing with Belgium is because the size of their country's nowhere near what Australia is, the runners are all close to each other. So they've all known each other since the 2020 year when they finished first. So yeah, they've always known each other. But Australia being so big, it's taken time for all the runners to actually run against each other and actually form relationships because they're all living on other sides of the country. But now, given the time that they are a tight-knit team.
Yeah,
I think that could help as well, right? Though the fact that they maybe don't meet up face to face as often makes it more of an event than when we're coming together to run something like this.
Yeah, it's like a special. Everyone's so excited. Everyone's so excited to see. Oh, because they're all friends now. Like 2 years ago, they were not shy of each other, but they were kind of like unsure. They didn't know each other. So, but now they're all friends. They're excited to run each other. They're excited to encourage each other and run as a team. So it's going to be unreal.
I think since 2020, it sort of talks to the evolution of backyard ultra running. So you have the 2020 Australian team where some of the runners were, maybe tapped on the shoulder, like, hey, I reckon you'd be good at this, or whatever, a bit of a team selection environment where we saw that in some of the countries participating for the first time. Then in 2022, I'm sure some people qualified with the team without really realizing there was a qualification process and there was a team. So, and they're meeting each other for the first time. A lot of the runners in 2022. So that's sort of that next phase of, hey, backyards have taken off because, we've had that 2020 championship and seen what can happen. There's a few more backyards around, but it's still not that national team environment. And obviously in 2022 was a huge race, and a lot of Australians got into backyards from watching that and looking at Ryan and Phil and saying how they get so deep. And now, fast forward 2 years, backyards have exploded in Australia, and all these runners know each other. They've run with each other. If they haven't necessarily run with each other, they know of each other. They've reached out to each other. It's going to be a huge team thing. Which will definitely, just grow backyards even further in the country. So some of these countries running for the first time, that's what they're playing for, to grow the sport in their country. And there might be some team selections on their roster this year, but what they achieve this year might explode the sport in their country for next year.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, rank 1, USA, the United States. Just an absolute powerhouse of backyards. It's not a surprise they're sitting top of the benchmark ranking. Average yards of 68.7, which is just huge. Harvey Lewis, obviously the world record holder with 108, set at big dogs. John Knoll with 98, Peter Chatovich 76, Scott Snell 75, Jennifer Russo 74, Megan Eckert 65. These are some huge numbers.
Yeah.
Their last minute change was Dan Jovicin coming out. Dan had set 70 yards. Him coming out meant Bo Shelby got in the team. Like we said earlier, Bo's with 57, which is the lowest on their at-large list. Huge team. A lot of them ran in 2022, so 9 of the runners ran in 2022. They're beyond what I just spoke to with the Australian evolution of backyard ultras. They're a few years ahead. So backyards are massive in the US, and they're a powerhouse of the sport. Obviously the home of backyards, and that's where they're running, in the backyard of backyards.
Levi Yoda's another one who's improving all the time. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how Ryan Mativier and you mentioned Megan Eckert go as well. I think Megan Eckert could be the next backyard ultra superstar. I reckon she could be the first woman to break 100. I don't know if she'll do it in this, but I reckon she could do it.
I was going to say the same. I've got that flagged, thinking she could be the furthest female.
Yeah.
Jennifer Russo is the current world record holder for a female, right, with 74.
Yeah.
And Megan Eckert was 65. That was a win.
Yeah.
So,
first one too.
Untested there. So, yeah, some huge numbers to come from Megan. And like it's a strong field. It's definitely an opportunity to get into the hundreds, because I think a number of these runners in the US team might be pushing into the triple figures.
Yeah. Awesome. Should we do our predictions?
I reckon we should.
Okay, so I've got top 3 countries. Did you want to go first, Tim?
Certainly. So I think United States is going to be hard to beat. And I think they'll take out the championship, but I think it's going to be really, really close. I'm going to say Australia, a very close second, and then Belgium, just with the strength and cohesiveness of their team. I think they'll be right behind the Australian total.
Yeah. And if you had a wild card, who would it be?
Oh, I reckon Poland. I reckon Poland is that wild card that they could. They could take the whole thing out. They're just such a strong team.
Yeah. What about you, Dom? What are your top three countries?
Extremely similar to what Tim said. So I'll try and make it slightly more interesting, maybe. Yeah, I think it's so difficult to see beyond US, Australia, and Belgium. I think as a team, US will probably perform the best and win overall. It'd be, but in terms of who goes the furthest as an individual, I think that's where Australia and Belgium might potentially do better with a more suited course than maybe what the US have. But I think, again, with Poland as a possible outlier, I'll say Poland. I think we'll get in the top three. It's just who ahead of, probably ahead of Belgium. So I go US, Australia, Poland for my top three.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gone Australia to finish first, Belgium to come second, USA to come third, and my wild card is New Zealand, because I mean Sam Harvey we know can go 10. He can go further than 100, and they've got all these runners who are just improving. They remind me a little bit of Australia 2 years ago. So this is a huge opportunity for New Zealand, and I think that they're going to go really well. Last country standing. What do you think, Tim?
I'm going to go Australia. No doubt in my mind. I think, look, Belgium's got some clear opportunities to get into the hundreds. I think there'll be a triple figure result coming out of Belgium. I think Japan's got a really strong field there. They've got some opportunities to get into triple figures. But I don't see how Australia couldn't get into triple figures. I think Phil's got the highest total with 102, so that's a no-brainer. He's one of the only two humans in the world to do triple figures twice, the only one who's done it twice in the same calendar year. You could take him out of the team, and I still think Australia would be the last one standing. I think there's some runners there who have the capability, but they're also peaking. They've put the training in. They're at the right time of their running life in backyards. I think this is their time to shine, and we'll see a number of runners in Australia hit triples.
Yeah. What do you think, Dom?
Hard to disagree with that one, to be honest. I think if it was on a one-off course, I'd fancy the US still. But I think with you mentioned before that the course looks pretty good for Australia. We know Big's course is pretty difficult. Maybe something like that could come into play when it comes down to it. So I think I'd have to agree with Australia, probably on paper and looking at the course, probably the strongest outfit there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gone Australia as well. I mean, we've got so many good runners, and so many runners are just absolutely frothing at the mouth for this. And yeah, I think Australia will be the team with the last one standing in it. And who do you think will be the last one standing overall, Tim?
Maybe an obvious prediction, but I reckon Phil Gore. Phil hasn't done a lot of backyards this year, but he's done a lot of running, and he was supporting Sean Bell, who did a massive run around Australia, which probably gave him a whole heap of insights into what to do when something goes wrong, because something would have been going wrong every single day for Sean. So I think that experience outweighs any number of backyards Phil could have been doing this year. And he's just the backyard king. So it's in his home turf in Perth. He's going to be really, really hard to beat. I know he's going to be tested. There'll be runners there pushing him hard, but I reckon he's got it in him.
Yeah. Yeah, that run around Australia with Sean Bell. I mean, I did actually ask him about that, and he told me that just seeing what Sean Bell had to, like, the physical stuff he had to get over to just continue day after day after day was just mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that all comes in handy. It's all experience, right?
Yeah, yeah. Who do you think, Dom?
I think looking over it, it's tough to look past Phil, but just for something slightly different, I think Ryan Crawford, I think could be an interesting shout. He's done quite a lot in the past, and I think with predicting Australia be the last team standing, obviously you'd go with someone there. But if you could bet on it, I think Lukasz at Poland would be a very interesting one to look at if they are possible. It's possible to go far. I don't know. I'll probably put a few quid on him being the last one standing, just because I think the odds would be quite good, and he's definitely got the talent for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gone someone a bit different for my last one overall standing. I've gone Tim Kaprizak. His best is 60 at bigs, but I know for sure he could have gone more than that. He's capable of going a lot more than 60 yards. And his performance at Miram Wernet was just off its head. That was the best performance I've ever seen anyone do in my life, just the conditions and the course. And it's a good form race as well. There's been a lot of runners come out of Miram Wernet and run big PBs as well. Joel Sexton's come out and run a PB. Matt Doob has run a PB. Ross McLean just came out and ran 55 at Sydney's the other day. This is the first race Tim's going to be running at since Miram Wernet, and I think he'll run a huge PB. And I think he'll go really, really close to being the last one standing.
Yeah, that's a huge call, and he's certainly got it in him. And I know that Miram Wernet event looked like it was bloody tough. I think you could times those numbers by 3 or 4, just based on the conditions that were achieved there.
Is that the Search for Hurt one where they filmed that? Is that that backyard? Yeah, that looked brutal. Yeah,
yeah. That's the one where I did 3, and then I timed it out in my 4th yard.
It shows you how tough it was, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've also come out and run a PB since then as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of PBs coming out of that race. And I think since Biggs as well, I think he's done a lot of work on his mindset. And I just think he knows himself and what he's capable of. The run at Miram Wernet as well, like it's the first race he's ever been so prepared for a race. He thought of absolutely everything that could have gone wrong and prepared for it. And I think I've got no doubt he'll be approaching this race at the Sat Champs exactly the same. And I think he's going to go absolutely berserk. I can't wait. It's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome. Too much
to watch.
Fun
5 or 6 days of watching, isn't it?
Yeah. So this time next week they'll be about 50 hours in, will they? Yeah, about 50 hours.
Yeah. You reckon we'll see prediction wise? Do you think we'll see the 2-2 in any country outside of Australia?
Yeah, well, I'm seeing it a fair bit more. I know they put them on in Iceland. There was another country I was surprised that had a few runners wearing the 2-2 just recently. I think it might have been at Little's, actually. They wore the few runners put on the 2-2.
I've seen a few over here. Yeah, like not en masse, but I've seen 1 or 2 people with it at the odd race.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if Alex Sweet puts on a 2-2.
Hey, what you two talk about, it's between you guys.
Yeah, and I reckon we'll see a few 2-2s for sure.
Yeah. You're doing the You're doing the live stream, Pato.
Yeah, so I'm heading over on Friday with all my stuff. So hopefully everything works and it's all smooth sailing. I think it will be. I've organised a Starlink to set up there, so I think that's how they did it at Suffolk. So I think it's going to be awesome. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. The hard thing will be watching all the exciting stuff because there's so many exciting countries and runners to watch.
Yeah.
And they're all running at the same time. It's like all your Christmases come at once. There's too many things to watch, and it's all going on together.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with it as well. Like most of the countries aren't going to have live streams, so you're just going to be relying on Instagram updates, numbers updates on the website, and then watch replay. Like when the whole thing is finished, then go back and watch what you can. But it's going to be hard to follow the other teams while you're actually at one of the races.
Yeah.
I'll send you some updates, Pay. Don't worry.
Oh, awesome.
I set up a spreadsheet, which might surprise you, that automatically updates and will post some data to the internet automatically, just based on this benchmark number, where as their predicted benchmark, and then every time a runner beats their PB, it'll update the benchmark, and every time a runner drops out, it'll update the benchmark, just to give some sort of indication of how teams are performing. But I think we're going to see some countries there that blow their benchmark out of the water.
Yeah, awesome. So where do people go to follow your updates?
I'll be trying to put some stuff on the Instagram with Backyard Stats. And then I've set up a website. Frank the Tank's been bugging me every week, so calm down, Frank. The website is www.backyardstats.com. There's a heap of data on there from past events, and I'll be sure to put some cool stuff from this event on there. But trying, fingers crossed, to get some live data updating, and not just copying the data from the backyardultra.com, but trying to bring some more interesting stats to it to have a look at, just so you can see how each country seems to be performing at that point in time.
Yeah, unreal. So you'll be busy. You'll be doing stat stuff, and you're also going to be crewing Nachi there.
Well, if I'm crewing Nachi, which I am, I'm 100% committed to that, which is why I've automated these charts to update on the website. So if they break, I'm probably not going to be fixing them.
Yeah.
The focus will be on helping Nachi break the Australian record again, and helping anyone there make sure the prediction comes true. and we are the last country standing. But yeah, hopefully it all works on its own.
Yeah, awesome. It sounds great. Cool. And what about you, Dom? How are you going to be spending the Sat Champs? You might go and you're just going to watch live streams, I guess?
Yeah, so I'll be glued to like the mainstream, and then I'll also probably have the UK one on as well. So I'll try to get by on Sunday if I can. If not, if they're still going Monday after work, Tuesday after work, then I might swing by, see how the guys are getting on.
Yeah, unreal. Okay, well, that was awesome chat, guys. We've been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes, so that went really quick.
Yeah, that's probably a record for your podcast, right?
Yeah, it definitely is.
So one record's been broken at least.
Yeah. Oh, unreal. Well, don't go anywhere. I'll hit stop on the recording, but great chatting. And I'll definitely be messaging you guys over the Sat Champs period, and I'll see you in Perth, Tim.
See you there.
Okay. See you guys.
Cheers. Take care.